Hello there you guys, welcome to one of my videos. On this video I'm going to be giving you Man United's player ratings so far this season. So I'll start off with David De Gea. I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10. I think De Gea started the season pretty badly, let 2 soft goals in the 2-1 home defeat to Brighton at Old Trafford, and he was accountable for 2 of Brentford's goals. Man United did lose that game to Brentford 4-0. But after the first 2 games, I think De Gea has really done well. De Gea is Manchester United's first choice goalkeeper. He's nearing a Manchester United exit. Atletico Madrid are interested in re-signing De Gea. De Gea is wanted by Juventus on a free transfer at the end of the season. Man United could let De Gea leave on a free at the end of the season. His contract expires next year, but there is an option to extend for a further year. Whether Man United extend that further year or not, I do not know. Moving on to Diego Dalot. I'm actually going to give him a 8 out of 10. I think Dalot's been impressive in a lot of games this season. I like the way he's got forward. He's provided a couple of assists as well. I think defensively he's been good. Dalot is our first choice right back under Ten Hag. He was also our first choice right back under Rangnick. So reflecting on that, there's no way back for Wan-Bissaka. There again though, like I mentioned, after the 6-3 defeat to City, I thought Dalot was poor in that game. Offered very little going forward, and he received an early yellow card. Moving on to Raphael Varane. I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10. I think Varane has played very well alongside Lisandro Martinez in our back line. I think in a lot of games this season, Varane has played the ball out well from the back. Defensively, he's been good. He's showed very good composure. He's had some poor games. Of course, Varane picked up an injury in the 6-3 defeat to Manchester City the weekend. Man United did get Raphael Varane from Real Madrid. And that's when obviously Lindelof lost his place when Man United signed Varane. Moving on to Victor Lindelof, I'm going to give him a 4 out of 10. Lindelof had an injury earlier on this season. He hasn't started a lot of games this season. I don't rate Lindelof at all. I think he could be leaving the club next year. Man United got Lindelof from Benfica back in 2017 in a deal worth 31 million. Moving on to Harry Maguire. I'm going to give him a 2 out of 10. Maguire weren't too bad in the opening game against Brighton, but he was absolutely dreadful in the 4-0 defeat to Brentford. Harry Maguire has not started a lot of games this season, and Erik Ten Hag made the right decision by not starting him because we look a far superior team without Maguire. I thought Maguire was poor last season in a lot of games. Maguire is now out with injury at the moment. Gareth Southgate confirmed not so long ago he picked up a hamstring injury, so he played no part in the Manchester derby. He wouldn't have started anyway because he's no longer one of our first choice centre-halves following the arrival of Lisandro Martinez. Man United overpaid for Maguire, got him for 80 million. I reckon he's leaving the club next year. Moving on to Lisandro Martinez. I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10. I really think he's made an impact since he come. Defensively, he's been good. He's been effective in the air. He's brought the ball out well from the back. And like I said, and I'll say it again, you know, him and Varane do complement each other in our back line. Man United got Martinez from Ajax in a deal worth 57 million. Moving on to Tyrell Malacia. I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10. I think Malacia has done well in a lot of games since he come. Didn't settle in straight away. Malacia obviously played in the 6-3 defeat to Man City at the weekend. He was poor in that one, and he did receive a yellow card in that game. Moving on to Luke Shaw. I'm going to give him a 4 out of 10. Luke Shaw's not started a lot of games this season. If I do recall rightly, didn't he start the first 2 against Brighton and Brentford? And then obviously we decided to put Tyrell Malacia ahead of him. I do know that Luke Shaw had a knock earlier on this season. Shaw, of course, came on in the 6-3 defeat to Man City. I think Shaw could be leaving the club next year. He's been at Man United for a good 9 years or so now. Shaw's contract at the club expires next year. Moving on to Fred, I'm going to give him a 4 out of 10. Fred hasn't started a lot of games this season. He's no longer one of our first choice centre midfielders following the arrivals of Casemiro and Christian Eriksen. Fred, though, did come on in the Manchester derby at the weekend, and he did provide an assist for one of Anthony Martial's goals. Man United got Fred from Shakhtar Donetsk for around £50 million, around 4 years ago now that was. Scott McTominay, I'm actually going to give him a 7 out of 10. I think he's had a lot of impressive games this season, McTominay. He was dropped in the 4-0 defeat to Brentford. Because he was poor on the opening game against Brighton. As you all know, I've got my strong reservations about Scott McTominay. The best games I recall him having as a United player was the, 6-2 win against Leeds. A few seasons ago now that was. He scored twice in that game. He played well in the 5-1 win against Leeds. He also played well in the 1-0 win against Villa in the Cup, was it last season that? And he played well away at Norwich. He's been part of the club for a long time, McTominay. Came up our academy, revert back to 2020, he signed a 5-year contract, so reflecting on that, he committed his future to the club. McTominay has played a hell of a lot of games alongside Fred in the centre of midfield. Moving on to Christian Eriksen, I'm going to give him a 8 out of 10. I really think he's made an impact since he's come in. Eriksen played very well in the 3-1 win against Arsenal because he was involved in all 3 of Manchester United's goals. Eriksen, I thought, though, was poor against Manchester City at the weekend. There again, he did provide an assist for Antony's stunning goal. Man United got Eriksen on a free transfer. When Eriksen officially signed, he signed a 3-year contract. Moving on to Casemiro, I'll give him a 6 out of 10. Casemiro has made impacts from the bench, but I thought Casemiro was poor on his first start in the 1-0 defeat to Real Sociedad. Casemiro did not start against Man City last weekend. There was a lot of Man United fans saying that he should have started at the weekend against City because he seems to do well in the big games. Casemiro's in line to make his first Premier League start against Everton at the weekend. Man United got Casemiro from Real Madrid in a deal worth 70 million with add-ons included. Moving on to Bruno Fernandes, I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10. He's done well in a lot of games this season. Don't forget Fernandes scored a very good volley in the 1-0 away win against Southampton. Bruno Fernandes, like I've said, he seems a much better player when he's not playing with Ronaldo. But when he's playing with Ronaldo, we can't get the best out of Fernandes for some reason. You know, don't forget Fernandes and Ronaldo do play together for Portugal. Fernandes has been a United player for over 2 years now, isn't it? Man United got him from Sporting Lisbon back in January 2020. Moving on to Antony. I'm going to give him a 6 out of 10 at the moment. Antony has scored 2 goals so far since he became a Manchester United player. Antony scored a stunner against Man City, but up until the goal, Antony did nothing against Man City. He was anonymous. And Antony scored on his debut in Manchester United's 3-1 win against Arsenal at Old Trafford. Man United got Antony for €100 million. That equates to around 86 million in pounds sterling. He's Man United's second most expensive signing ever, and he's the 4th most expensive signing in Premier League history. Jadon Sancho. I'm going to give Jadon Sancho a 7 out of 10. I think he's performed really well in a lot of games this season. He's got like 3 goals so far this season. Sancho, of course, scored in Man United's 2-0 away win against FC Sheriff. He scored in Man United's 1-0 away win at Leicester. And he scored in Manchester United's 2-1 home win against Liverpool. Man United did get Jadon Sancho from Borussia Dortmund in a deal worth 78 million with add-ons included. Moving on to Anthony Elanga. I'm going to give him a 6 out of 10. Marcus Rashford. I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10. Rashford's done well in a lot of games this season. Don't forget Marcus Rashford scored in Man United's 2-1 home win against Liverpool earlier on in the season. Rashford's provided assists as well. He scored twice in Man United's 3-1 win against Arsenal. Rashford recently won Premier League Player of the Month for September. Rashford did play against Man City last weekend and I thought he was poor. Earlier on this season it said Man United were ready to hand Marcus Rashford a new 5-year deal as a reward for his early season form. Rashford's contract at Man United expires next year. There is an option to extend for a further year. Moving on to Cristiano Ronaldo. I'm going to give Ronaldo just a 4 out of 10. He's been poor in a lot of games he has played in this season, but he hasn't started a lot of games this season, Ronaldo. You know, Ronaldo was shocking in the 4-0 defeat to Brentford. But Ronaldo did score his first goal of the season in Man United's 2-0 away win against FC Sheriff. And it was Ronaldo's 699th career goal. Ronaldo, of course, didn't play any part against Man City last weekend. He was left on the bench and Erik ten Hag explained why. Cristiano Ronaldo can leave Manchester United in January. Erik ten Hag will not stand in his way, but when Erik ten Hag first took charge, he actually wanted Cristiano Ronaldo to stay. Ronaldo's been his second spell at Man United. Man United re-signed Ronaldo last year from Juventus. His contract at the club expires next year. There's an option to extend for a further year. Ronaldo's on around £480,000 a week. I think Ronaldo will be starting against Omonia Nicosia. Moving on to Anthony Martial. I'm going to give him a 5 out of 10 because Martial has not played in a lot of games this season because he's had quite a few injuries. But Martial made an impact when he came off the bench against Man City at the weekend because he scored 2 goals. One was from a header and one was from a penalty. So, there you go. So, that is your player ratings so far this season. So there guys, that's everything to update you with. Drop your comments, likes below on the channel if you do, consider subscribe as always, and take care. God bless. See you all again very soon.